Good evening, Thin Line peeps. It's me, Messy Jessie. I'm just coming on here with my favorite person of all time, SOS. And we are discussing some awesome programs that are out in our community. SOS, who do we have with us today?
We have Darold, and is it Brewer? Is that how you say your last name?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And Darold is with Project Healing Waters. And I heard about this a couple of years ago from some friends of mine who actually took part of within this. I think, and she did it's fly fishing. Is that correct?
That's correct primarily, but that's where the focus is. And we like to introduce people to fly fishing, but it's not restrictive if there are folks that aren't quite comfortable with that method of fishing. Then we also do other types of fishing that people may be more comfortable with or more capable with. So
It's really interesting. How did Project Healing Waters start, and where is it?
well, it started in about 2005 and it started at one of the hospitals in Washington, D.C. There was a retired Navy, I want to say he's either a captain or an admiral, who was being seen at one of the hospitals. It may have been Walter Reed, and for his own issues and rehabilitation and so forth, and noticed a lot of returning veterans from the conflicts that were occurring at the time in Iraq and Afghanistan who were there for rehabilitation as well. There was a limited amount of activities that was available to them in the hospital. This individual was an avid fly fisherman and thought maybe I can get a few of these folks that are more capable out, do an outing, introduce them to fishing, and share his own experiences to try and introduce individuals to more outdoor type activities. And so that's where it was born from. He ended up getting in touch with a couple of other individuals as smaller grassroots type um, programs start. He didn't have all the capabilities necessary to really make it effective. So he reached out to some other individuals with other resources and began introducing, started off with a small group of people, and it grew from there to, I think the last count I saw in 2015, there's 120 programs plus nationwide. I'm a part of the Northwest Territory, for lack of a better word, in our area specifically is the Denver area. I'm located in Boise, Idaho. So,
Okay.
um, and it introduces vets at one time with a certain disability level to elements of fly fishing, whether it was stream fishing, stillwater fishing, and then it grew into building rods. Um, this individual introduced another veteran who was a pretty skilled and capable fly tyer to share his skills with some individuals, and the therapeutic effect of fly fishing and fly tying. And then it grew into also rod building. So individuals could build their own rods, tie their own flies, and put all that together at streamside under the guidance and help of other more skilled individuals to uh, get veterans out and to not isolate and find the therapeutic quality of fly fishing, the quietness of it. And also part of it was the inclusion of and some of the camaraderie that was missed from people's active duty time and those units that they used to be a part of. And so it grew from there.
It almost sounds like a really healing program, which is great.
It took a while for them to come up with the name, but it kind of grew organically from what it actually did. And that was there's healing in the waters.
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
And if you're not a fisher person, I love to fish and I can't catch anything. For me, it's being there on the river and the experience, just being out there. The it just lowers your pulse rate. Everything about
Mhm.
it is just amazing. And like you said, the camaraderie of it all, I- you do miss. And I've been out of the military for quite a long time now, and I miss it. I
Right.
miss it, and I still, I'm still connected on Facebook to a lot of the the people I served with, and we still chat about things, but it's that bond, you never break that bond. It's always there with the people you serve with. You may disagree on everything politically, everything about life, how you grew
Yep.
up, everything, but that bond is unbreakable.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
people are always looking for that again. When you get out of the service, man, sometimes you flounder.
It's
Yeah,
I don't know what the statistics are anymore. When I was active duty, um, we were always encouraged, or I was always encouraged to hear anecdotal stories about individuals that didn't find something else that gave them a sense of purpose and a sense of inclusion once they left the military. And without that, some folks don't connect with their communities around them, they don't feel comfortable around them, and end up maybe turning to some more negative ways and negative outlets that aren't healthy,
right.
and health suffers, and whether it be physical or mental health, emotional health. And I don't know what your experience was. I know what mine was. And it's not a place, men aren't necessarily programmed, and women as well. I mean, I've met a lot of women vets as well who had a difficult time reaching out and asking for any kind of assistance or help, whether or
Right.
not they wanted to acknowledge that they missed it as much as you described and as much as I've experienced as well. So
Yeah.
it's it's one of those things that, um, just for an example, I was teaching a beginner fly tying class a few weeks ago, and somebody asked a question and I responded in the phonetic alphabet. I spelled out every word in the phonetic alphabet, and everybody in the room's nodding their head up and down. They absolutely understood what I was saying. And I said, "See, I'm with my people." So,
Exactly. I do that all the time, and people are like, "What are you doing?" And yeah, you use the right to phonetics every time, right? Um, so let's say that somebody has had no experience with your organization and um, they finally make that step of reaching out, and we're going to put all your contact information for the website
sure.
and information about how people can donate to this. It's an incredible organization, and it is um, there's different ways to donate. And but let's say they finally they reach out to a local affiliate, a local
Right.
chapter, right? And they make that initial contact with you, and then you start that chain of communication with them. Are you giving them like dates and times of courses that, because you have a
Yes.
lot of stuff that you teach?
Um, we've been, for the past 2 years now, we've had year round, this, like right now, it's 40 degrees outside, and the rivers are flowing. The reservoirs are releasing water, and so the rivers aren't very wadeable and fishable. It's not safe. And so during the, off season times, although in fly fishing and regular fishing there is no off season for the folks at Diehard, but we'll have a meeting once a month on a Thursday, get together for 2 hours. Somebody may have a presentation on fishing knots or building leaders, or we'll tie a fly and have somebody, one of our local volunteers who's pretty skilled, demonstrate how to tie a fly, and then talk about the application, where you would use it, how you would use it. And those are open. We send the invitations out to, currently locally, we have about 120 participants and volunteers. Um, any combination of those folks will show up on a Thursday, donate their time if they're a volunteer. Uh, everybody has input. You know, even individuals that don't necessarily volunteer, they still have additional input to contribute to. And it's a learning experience for me every time I get to sit in a class and listen to people that are a whole lot more skilled than I am. Talk about, I use it this way, I use it here, I use it here, I use it here, how to read water, different types of fly rods, different styles of casting, um, just different species of fish that a person can target. And there's a saying within fishing, and I don't know if you're familiar, but the tug is the drug. And that becomes the new kind of a catchphrase, that you never know necessarily what's on the other end, but it's always a thrill to get the tug, feel the pull, and be able to reel something in that you were able to fool for that short amount of time. And then we practice a lot of catch and release and healthy handling of fish, um, how to fight, how to get fish to the net as best we can, and if assistance is required, we do that. So it's there's a lot of different ways that we try and keep people connected, um, and sharing information.
Yeah.
What are some of the, without giving names, but what are some of the success stories that you've seen with how it's helped people who are battling through maybe different PTSD and all of this, how you've seen them kind of come out of that, if you will?
Uh, when I first started, you know, some 13, 14 years ago, when I first got introduced to the program, I had little skill with tying and went through a few classes that were encouraged, that I was encouraged to participate through work. Um, I implemented or helped to implement another program in another work setting that I was in, and then was invited to these beginning fly tying classes and intermediate fly tying classes. So I did not see myself with my fingers, my hands, being able to tie anything so intricate and so small, nor did I understand the philosophies with fly tying and fly fishing. My skills grew, and as I did, I'm observing other vets in the rooms. I'm seeing some folks that were hesitant walking in the door, and by the time a class is over with, that never held a tying bobbin or seen a vise or hooks that small and so forth, actually begin to open up a little bit more, engage a little bit more, demonstrate emotions, smile, um, break through that stoicism and break through some of those barriers. And that was early on. On the opposite side now, I'm usually leading these classes or volunteering and showing other people how to tie. And I've done it, you know, I've mirrored people from across the table from me. They're tying right-handed, I'm tying left-handed, so I can mirror their actions, they can mirror mine. And just the patience that other volunteers have shown and demonstrated. It might be somebody who's not real comfortable in a group setting, and sometimes those things the classes can get kind of loud, they can overstimulate. And if I see that and I see somebody shutting down, I'll go and I'll sit at a table right across from them, calm, lower the voice, look them in the eye, talk through them one-on-one, and it helps for them to get through it. And I know for myself, when I'm doing that, I'm a lot less angry. My blood pressure comes down. I get calmer.
Yeah.
it's pretty rewarding, and I've seen this multiple times where an individual will tie a fly, and then we will go to an outing, whether it's streamside or at a stillwater pond, lake, and watch them catch a fish, hook a fish, and land it on a fly that they tied. And the look on their face, I don't know who gets more out of it, them or me. So, but those are particularly, it's you're catching a fish. I mean, that's the thing. But I've seen folks do it that didn't have full use of their hands. I've seen folks do it from motorized chairs. I've seen, folks that make the effort of they have to get their chair, put that into a van, show up at a site, allow themselves to be assisted to the degree they're comfortable with, and then get to the stream side. Some prefer to be on their own, which we respect, and then provide assistance as needed. So, and generally, people come away with it much happier than when they showed up. So, I led fly tying classes where somebody has come in and their hand is almost not functional, but they'll figure out a way to set it on a vise, be able to hold tools, and follow along at their own speed. And we have lots of volunteers that will, not everybody's operating at the same speed or same confidence level, but they tie something, and I always used to say I tie flies for blind fish, and I tie ugly flies for fish that can't see well, because those are the only ones I seem to catch. And so it doesn't matter how it turns out. It doesn't matter if it looks, like it does in a catalog or in a fly shop. The the end result is if it catches a fish and they tied it, there's a lot of reward to that. So, and there's multiple stories like that. So some people will get so enthusiastic about it, they'll go out and spend a little bit of money, buy some stuff that is personal to them, and begin using their own equipment and tying their own flies, get more enthusiastic about it. There's people that start off like myself as participants who are now volunteering and leading classes of their own, where initially when they walked in the door, um, they would have told me there's no way I would have done this, initially. But they gain a little bit more confidence, and that camaraderie factor, I think, is huge. I don't think it
Yeah.
can be I don't think it can be overstated, because we have folks from all services. We've got male and female participants and volunteers that are phenomenal. So, and we get to incorporate a lot of very, very skilled individuals that are more than willing to give their time to demonstrate what they can and provide what they can. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful program that you guys have. It definitely builds patience, confidence, brother sisterhood, and as well as getting them out to decompress and you know and just be with nature and be with you know whoever they believe in, God or what have you,
Right.
because ultimately that is the healing, is the nature. And wow, that's amazing. I'm glad that you have this program. Now, do you ever reach out to like Legion, like the American Legion, and provide stuff through them as well?
Um, I do when I'm asked. I've been asked with the local VA on a few occasions where they have folks that are hospitalized or going through rehabilitation program there at the VA, and I'm connected with recreation therapists here locally, and say, hey, can you come up and just show up for a couple hours on a given night in a room? I have
Yeah.
about a dozen fly tying vices and toolkits and materials, and we'll sit down with people that never heard and never talked to before, but okay, we'll get everything set up, show them from the very beginning how to do this, On some of these open tying classes that we've had, other folks have dropped in. I haven't been involved with personally reaching out to the American Legion or the VA or the VFW, but other organizations that hear about it will contact and ask. And
Yeah.
again, since Healing Waters, and most recently within the last week, it's no longer based on disability level or anything. It's just if you're a veteran, you are welcome. So, and
That's
we're
awesome.
just trying to get the word out now so that hopefully get more people involved.
So, and Daryl, does it have to be a combat veteran or any
No,
veteran?
any veteran.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Any veteran, and that includes Air National Guard or Army National Guard or reserves. So anybody
Awesome.
who's a veteran.
I was surprised. I was talking about your organization to a friend of mine who now lives in Oklahoma, but she's from Texas. She goes, "Oh, I know all about him.
Yeah.
My husband went through it." And I was just really like, yeah, he apparently when he got out of the Air Force, he found it like 10 years later, and he got hooked up with them, pun intended. But yeah, it was yeah, he enjoyed it, and so she knows all about it, and she thought it was just she said it was absolutely great to help him through some of that, you know, the lack of the bonding that you have, plus the PTSD that he was dealing with, and it really helped him. And when I go to the website, like you said, you're seeing people that are in wheelchairs, amputees.
Mhm.
Really, it's you guys have found a way to work around everybody's physical limitations because we all have them to some degree, and
Right.
you get them out there and you
Yep.
get them at the water's edge, and whether it's a river or a lake, and you're helping them through this. It's pretty
We
cool.
find we
Yeah.
find access points in the local waters um, where we can find ways of getting people close to the water to where they can cast, and nobody has to be an expert at it. I'm certainly not. I I have bad habits when it comes to casting, but I'm still. I mean, the end result, if you can get the fly out there and get it in front of the fish is going to bite it, and you're going to have something on that you can land.
That'd
So
be your challenge. I'll take you up on that challenge. I can be right next to somebody who casts and catches every time, and I won't get anything using the same technique, the same bait, same everything. I would rise to that challenge. But like I
you'd
said,
be you'd be welcome.
thank you. But I'm sorry, I have a flu bug. So but it's really remarkable that there's so many different therapies out there, and I don't know that people even I don't think a lot of people understand this exists and how successful it really is. And do you find people who go through the program then come back to volunteer because they found it so rewarding?
Many times, while you were sharing about your your friend down in Texas, there was an individual that showed up late last year, maybe the beginning of last year's. We're in the midst of, we just started a 6 week fly tying. So we're meeting again tomorrow night. So for the next 4 more weeks or 5 more weeks, we'll have intermediate volunteers demonstrating some more advanced fly tying. And then I'll lead more beginner classes. And we have other volunteers. Some of the folks that start off participants, I recruited them. Hey, come in and tie one of your favorite patterns that works for you. And they have agreed to come in and lead a class on their own. So, but this one individual was, I don't exactly know what he was struggling with other than a lot of PTSD and a lot of anger. And his wife found out about the organization and introduced him to it and said, "You need to go and just at least check this out." And I remember the first night that he showed up and he hadn't any experience. There was an underlying edge to his voice that I detected and said, "We can do this." And here's what we're going to do. I've never done this before. That's okay. I started off where I never knew what the heck I was doing either. So
Yeah.
you go at your own speed. And I try and read a room when I'm leading a class to see who is where I'm at, who needs a little bit extra time. And we got great volunteers that will go around individually and, okay, this is what he's doing, this is what he's doing. So, and he was interested, he was engaged, he was smiling by the end of the session. Came back the next week. He's been one of the most steadfast participants that we've had over the past year. He and his wife also took it up so that it was another activity they were able to do together. They lived fairly close to the river in town and began going out on their own. And so pretty soon I started getting pictures sent to me with fish that he's caught. And of course, okay, where'd you get them? Said, no, I can't tell you that. I'll have to kill you. You know, people don't want to
Yeah, the
share
secret spot. Yeah.
their super
That was my
secret
next
spots.
question. Where are the fish?
If you ask most of the experienced people, and one of the responses that irritates me the most is, well, I would suggest in the water.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't help me a lot. There's a lot of fish in the water.
Yeah.
The Fish and Game in Idaho do a pretty good job of stocking fish in some of the local ponds as well as in the rivers. So
Yeah.
most fly fishermen are catch and release. So they're very sensitive about handling fish correctly, making sure they survive. People want to catch big fish. Well, fish don't get big if everybody's pulling them out and
Yeah.
taking them home. So
Right.
most people will turn them back loose. So I don't understand necessarily the secretive area other than they like their quiet, they like their solitude, they like their space. And that I get. That I would like to protect as well. So having somebody
Right.
shoulder to shoulder, or you know, the adage is if I can hit you with a cast, you're too close. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that that goes into a lot of protecting spots. But there's so many that are in. We're fortunate here in Boise to have a wonderful resource, the Boise River running right through town,
Right.
and it there's a lot of fish to be had. Yes, some the more experienced people know right where the secret holes are and all that stuff, but even they can get skunked sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's hit and miss. It's weather related, and but you don't catch fish unless you go. So
Right.
Yeah.
kind of have to get out and do the footwork too. And but there's always assistance on reading water, reading spots, finding areas that are likely to hold fish, so you're not wasting a lot of time. But the whole onus behind it is to encourage people to get out and to have some success to build that momentum to moving forward and building that camaraderie, continuing
Yeah.
to ask for assistance if necessary. And generally, that leads to conversations not related to fishing. It leads to, well, what did you do in the military? What branch did you serve? Where were you stationed? Some of the experiences, you don't talk and ask specifically. Kind of wait for somebody to offer it up and then go from there. And it moves at people's individual comfort level. So fishing just seems to be a catalyst.
I think it's really remarkable. I love this. And there you guys are, from what I understand too, if there are people who are involved and would like to volunteer and start other chapters, that you're looking for that, right? Like
Yes,
we're in the Pocatello area, so
right.
this is
And
like having a Pocatello chapter here if somebody's out here.
you do have one in Idaho Falls, eastern Idaho. Um, it's very, very active chapter going
Oh,
on
you
out there.
do?
Yes.
I didn't see it on the map. That's awesome. Okay.
So
Um,
they're very active out there. I haven't been able to fish with that specific group, but out near Ashton, there's a place called 3 Mile or 3 Island or 3 Rivers Ranch. Sorry, outside of Ashton. And Healing Waters has done outings, and 3 Rivers Ranch has hosted some of those outings for Project Healing Waters, whether it's sometimes volunteer guides will volunteer their time, and sometimes guides can be hired through the budgetary process to where we'll have some guides that are more skilled and know the local waters, and we'll take a small group the, of participants, and here's where you need to be, here's what to use, here's how to read this water, and here's where they're likely to be. So that's another thing that I found by being a part of this is there's a lot of really great people, organizations out there, guide services and so forth that are willing to volunteer and spend time with because they recognize the value of giving back. So, and somehow wanting to say thanks to the veterans and for their service. So it's very, very common to hear, thank you for your service, thank you for your service. So there's a great chapter in Eastern Idaho.
I'll have to look into that. Maybe when I retire next year, I can get involved with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's really phenomenal, and I read some of the success stories um, online, and I don't know how many people actually have heard about this, but I definitely think I'm going to make sure that we have a local, and maybe they know, but we have a county-based veterans organization at ISU in Pocatello. They have
Uh-huh.
a huge office there full of staff up there, and they help veterans with all kinds of stuff. They give them free legal aid. They do all kinds of
Sure.
stuff, right? And I if it with your permission, I can print out one of your flyers from your website and take it up there next time I'm there. Try to
Absolutely.
get more people involved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
There's a really good video documentary that was made, I want to say 2015. It could be I may not have the year right, but it's called Healing Waters. I watched it on YouTube not too awful long ago. It does a pretty good job of including a lot of different vets who start off as participants. There are individuals, like you said, amputees. Um, some folks are fishing one armed. Um, some folks are fishing or tying flies with only the use of one arm and or one hand. So it's difficult to watch without getting emotional.
Yeah.
But it's a good introduction to the program itself. And on it, the founder speaks and how he kind of started the whole thing. So,
I'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and
This is so amazing.
it leads to other, I have some veterans that are part of the program that are also volunteering with other organizations that provide fly fishing opportunities for cancer patients or cancer
Mm.
survivors. There's also a pretty healthy women's chapter of fly fishing in the area as well. So, but we're all in, I mean, we have co-ed, it's male, female, whoever wants to show up, it doesn't matter, everybody's welcome. So,
Oh, that's
and
great.
they're either veterans themselves or they are spouses of veterans, and I don't want to overlook the service that the spouses also provide and also endure during those service years also.
Yeah.
So
Though I'd like to
Absolutely.
see a competition between the men and the women in catching the fish.
Don't want
I
me on
have
your team, Jesse, that's for sure.
That's okay. We'll do it.
seen some I have seen some partners that'll have this informal competitions, and whether or not they're doing an official count, but I'm sure bragging rights on the drive home
Who's
or
doing the dishes that night?
something like that.
Yeah.
So pretty cool to watch, but it's all in good fun. So
Well, thank you so much. This has just been, I just love bringing this information out here, and we're all about talking about PTSD with our first responders and trying to give them some avenues to help them. maybe things that they haven't heard of before or ideas that they haven't tried, and for their families to come on and talk about how they deal with their first responder, their military, and because PTSD is a shared event. It's when you go through it, it's affecting everybody in your life. And if there's avenues that are healthy for you to get out and do something to help reduce that trauma, then this is huge. And I getting out there and fishing is an awesome thing. I mean, I'm terrible at it and I still do it, but so it's just that being out on the water, being next to the water, being, the act of fly fishing for me, I'm terrible with casting. I took some lessons, but I'm terrible. But just the casting part for me is just that it's so relaxing. It's almost you go into a like a what's the term? I'm trying to come up with it, but
Kind
it's
of like
like
a
yoga,
trance, really.
that
Like
trance like state of just watching the fly on the water a little bit and
hear the birds and the water. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I have a tendency of overpowering the rod and overpowering the cast and start to goof things up, and the flies don't go where I'm, in my mind's eye, I can see what I want to do, but my muscles don't always follow. And so then it forces me to slow down and then be a little bit more conscious of the action and a little bit more conscious of the motion, and which provides another connectedness to nature. It provides a connectedness to the water. It provides a connectedness to the surroundings. And even though it's expansive, I can look around horizon to horizon and so forth. But it's almost as if you're operating in your own little bubble. So slow down, breathe in and out. It's almost meditative in a way. And you can get into a kind of a Zen state, which everything else around you pixelates out and you're able just to focus on that. So if a fish cooperates, that's great. But at the end of the day, it's certainly not wasted. Um, I could say, okay, last cast. Well, that means there's probably going to be about 25 more before you want to, because there's always the potential that the fish is going to rise or the fish is going to take. And who wants to quit and walk away once you're there? It's difficult to walk away. So feet are numb, you're kind of cold, got to chill. But at the same time, it's difficult to walk away.
So. I always image that grumpy-year-old man when they go out and catch the catfish hunter out in the middle of the. That's what I always vision. And then they finally catch it and they release it. And I think it was just kind of like a bond that those two had, and it's the same as what you offer through your program, is that bond that when the vets come home, they have to acclimate themselves when they come back, and sometimes they shut themselves away because they have no idea how. And I think this is a great program for them to go out and find like-minded people or have went through the same traumatic events or the same trainings and stuff like that, for them to provide a friendship that they don't normally would have because they close themselves in. And I think this is great. Thank you for providing this to our military. This is very important for their healing.
It's a give and get kind of thing.
So Darold, thank you so much for being a guest on our show. We really appreciate your time, and I'm going to put a link to the website, to different ways people can donate. The information that I found on your website for how to, different ways to communicate with the project. And if you go to, for those in the audience listening, if you go to the website, there's a map and it shows different locations and different chapters, and reach out to one of them and start getting involved. I think it would be, or volunteer to start helping. I think it would be incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I get contact information from other people and from other programs who are transferring or moving to this area. And whether they contact the Northwest website or Northwest information, then those emails get funneled to me as far as individuals wanting to transfer, and then I respond back to those individuals via email and provide them with a map of the campus of where we meet and the schedule of when we meet. Once folks get registered and get into our database, then those invites, everybody that's in there as a participant gets an invitation to any of the events that are upcoming. So we have a local access to a local pond that once in a while we provide. We'll get guys together that are part of the program, go out, do a general cleanup of this one particular private pond, and then we have fishing outings a couple times a month where we can go out there and fish for the entire day, and we're the only ones that are there on the water. And it's not uncommon to hear, somebody be over on one side of the pond, everybody, you can see pretty much everybody, it's not huge, but to hear the loud cheers and the loud hoops and hollers and everything else when somebody's hooked up into the fish. So, and the big smiles and the cheers and the pictures afterwards. So, and the stories, the fish stories.
That's great.
There's always fish stories.
And where the fish are.
Where the fish are.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. And to everybody joining us tonight, we appreciate your time. Please get the word out if you have a veteran in your life and that this exists, and have them get involved. I think it would be very beneficial. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's our show, guys. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for being on here again. And don't forget, guys, Wednesday night is live Speaking of Spirits. And then Thursday is the Nightmare Roadshow. So, guys, stay tuned. There's more coming. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.